Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pails, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jaylen.
Can I quote the John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
There we is. There we go. What's up, Bobby?
What's up?
Two-man show tonight. That's it. If you're waiting around for anybody else, they're not coming. It's like it's a West Coast game, right? West Coasts and Saturday nights. That's it. It's you, me, and a bunch of.
It's Friday
girls.
night.
That's what we got.
But we'll be
Right.
back
Is it
tomorrow
Friday?
too. Yeah.
Back tomorrow. That's right. Yeah. You, me, and the sad girls. Actually, you're going full for 1 second. Go ahead.
All right.
I'm coming
there you
right
have
back.
it.
I'm just doing something. Just adjusting
129,
something.
102, ho hum again. I think Grandy said during this one, John, I listened to the
Yep.
radio tonight. 16th time over the last 18 games, the Celtics have led by 20 in a game. Not 10, not double figures, 20.
Well, I'm gonna one up you here. I'm gonna add something to it. According to Dick Leip, statistician for the Celtics here, NBA record with their 15th 25-point win of a single season.
I mean, they're just you hate to go off games like this.
The Bucks in 70-71 and 71-72, and San Antonio in 2015-16.
Yeah, and you hate to go off these kind of games to talk about the level of dominance, but when you put it in a bigger scale like this, and listen, every team every year is going to get to play the Detroits and Washingtons of the world. It's historic what they've done this year, and we're going to wait till the playoffs to judge them, as we should. But the consistency, the taking care of business, and the level they're doing it to, I mean, it's exactly what we asked for from them this season. And to do it with multiple, sometimes 3 starting level guys out now in these kind of games, to still be able to rack up those kind of advantages, I don't think we quite expected that coming into this year, because we thought they were thin. We thought they had a ton of talent at the top. But we're seeing now between Pritchard and Hauser and Cornette and different guys, they can sustain with guys out. And is that transferable to the playoffs? That's the question we'll keep asking here. But as far as the regular season goes, I feel like they could sit down all their starters and win a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, those are good points because, I think any pump the brakes, with the team at the beginning of the year revolved around, how's it going to fit? But also, it's a long season and they don't have much of a bench. And when you're out a couple of starters, you might concede a couple of these games to lesser opponents. And you expected that would happen. But I mean, the opposite. And again, I guess the reverse of that is oftentimes they're playing teams. They might be down a guy or two, but oftentimes they're playing teams and those teams are down a guy or two. So you take 1 or 2 guys off the Pistons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a G League. I mean, it's not so. But again, that's not taking anything away. Is they're beating these teams by 25 and 30 points. I mean, it's an insane thing, and I think this is how it's going to be the rest of the year. And I actually love it. I think it's perfect because you talk about, Bobby, are these guys going to be ready for the playoffs? Will they have this same level of confidence and productivity in the playoffs? I don't know, but the best thing that you can do right now is exactly what you're doing, is giving them reps with the starters, letting them play 25 and 30 minutes a game. Peyton Pritchard playing 38 minutes tonight as a starter, starting a second straight game here with Jrue Holiday out, and we'll get into that and our level of concern with it. Sam Hauser back, no issue there. But I mean, when he's in there, he's played, large minutes. I think it's perfect. This is the perfect thing. I mean, this is over. They could wrap up the East by the end of this weekend if things fall their way. And
the magic numbers 2.
I think 3. Pardon me. I think 3 of the 6 starters, that they like to call them, per night is the exact formula you want to do. Your guys won't get rusty. And again, maybe some nights you play 4, but I think you're resting 2 and 3 of these guys all the time, the rest of the way. Great balance of keeping them sharp while not tiring them out heading into the playoffs. Plus, I love the bench games. I think they're fun. They give you something to watch that's different. Like,
Yeah.
what fun is it in watching Tatum and Brown, play your ball, my ball, each trying to put up 30 in the first 2.5 quarters, against the Pistons. Like, they could do it, and there could have been a 50-point game, but like, who cares? Like,
So
this is so much more fun.
Tatum wouldn't sit against anyone all year long, and then he sits twice against Detroit in 1 week.
I know.
So I guess he doesn't care about the Pistons fans as much
Maybe
as some
they
of the
did
others.
market research and realized that's the fewest Tatum jerseys are bought in Detroit, and he's like, I can sit this one out.
That was amazing seeing that tonight. I'm thrilled about that. And yeah, you're right. The bench games are more fun. You can find out more.
Yeah.
You can get reps with the starters if that's how you're going to be staggering your lineup in the playoffs. There's no real downside to doing this, especially if you are rotating them in back-to-backs here, especially, but even in games with some separation down the stretch. Just to keep everybody fresh, I'm thrilled they went with Tillman in the starting lineup tonight because I think that's been overdue, getting him some more with the starting group there. Didn't go great, but I'm glad they tried it. And it feels like they're trying everything at this point.
Yeah.
I think we're looking for a little more experimentation probably 3 weeks ago or so here, and now it's a nightly thing. They're putting everybody in these lineups. You're seeing some Luke. You're seeing some, Pritchard in the starting lineup, which builds on his big week. And, that's really becoming the story here into some of these shorthanded games is him with some extra opportunity, him with the ball in his hands more, and him playing alongside some of the starting level guys. You're seeing magic happen really out there with him. And, we always talked about John. I know you got into this a little bit last game, but it seemed like he came into the league with a pretty hard ceiling. Like he's going to hit some threes. He's going to handle the ball a little bit. Not a great playmaker, not a great defender. But we've talked all year about how he's gotten his defense up. And now for him to be having a 9-assist game.
It's the playmaking that's the thing that knocks it up. Both things you mentioned. It's the playmaking and the defense is at a level I don't think anybody saw in there. I think you saw instant offense against second units as maybe the most you were going to get, right?
Yeah. And this is what he asked for last year when he was looking to get traded. A chance to play a lot. And now he's been able to do that this year. I think going back to, let's say the beginning of February here. And obviously he has what I thought was the best game I've ever seen from him last game. Coming into tonight, he was scoring 10 points a game on 49% shooting from the field, 41% from three over the last 21 games. That's with 3 assists per game, which, when you consider he's going to be playing with Tatum, Brown, White, 3 assists, I think, is the perfect number for him. And then, you ramp up his level to 40 minutes, you're going to obviously triple that in a game like this. So that's perfect for him. And he's not turning the ball over either, which is crucial.
It's everything. It's, him getting how much difficulty in the first couple of years did he have trying to get a shot off anywhere in the paint? Impossible, right? Now he's actually bodying guys. And he's able to get there and like score in traffic, just by being crafty and nifty and sometimes using, he's a stocky guy, even though he's short, using his physicality. It's extremely impressive.
He worked on his core or something over the summer. He's
stronger.
I think,
yeah.
We mentioned last year, and I think even like going into this year, he's looked a little heavy at times. Like, not that he's like fat, but like he didn't look like he had like the, elite strong physique that it looks like he's developed this year. And I think, you might have noticed, or we talked about coming into camp, how strong he looked, and you've seen it come into play at the rim. But it's also making good decisions about the rim. There was one play in this game. They were running in transition, and he was going to the basket, and he just kind of backed it out a little bit. And Hauser cut right across the middle, and he found him because he backed out and, created some space in there. That's stuff he wasn't doing at all even a year ago. The manipulation, some pick and roll stuff. I don't have the numbers right in front of me with this pick and roll, but he's just making good decisions. He's not turning the ball over. Yeah, he's shooting, I think, in some wise positions too, like taking aggressive shots when needed. There was a 3 early in this game after an offensive rebound that was super aggressive but necessary and turned into a 4-point play. So he's just a smarter player, and they wanted him to become that early on, but it took a lot of time, and it almost looked like his time here had run out a year ago. And now you're just thrilled that you held on to this guy and kept him for what, $6 million a year, which is pennies now.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's beyond what we had expected. He could potentially do.
And they got
in a lot
lucky,
of different ways,
right? Because they were offering him and Gallinari for Jakob Poeltl, and as much as I liked that deal a year ago, and some people probably would have liked that idea, it's better you didn't do that. And it's funny enough, Poeltl goes to Toronto, and now Toronto's given the number 7 pickup to San Antonio.
At this point, the way he's playing, you can flat out say, like, he's taking the Brogdon minutes and doing okay with them, right? If you're starting Holiday and White every game, which you are, I think he's absolutely giving you right at the moment what you lost with Brogdon, which is offense, control, poise, and honestly, defense at least comparable, if not even better than what Malcolm was giving you, which was not great last season. So again, Jimmy would get mad because he thinks we're taking shots at Brogdon on the way out the door. I thought Brogdon gave you exactly what you needed last year with the instant offense, but right now, he's absolutely been valuable. And sometimes that happens, right? He was a throwaway in trades. I think everybody was comfortable. Like, maybe some people are like, I wish we didn't have to toss him in, but he was just added value. Like, and throw in Pritchard and whatever happens there. And sometimes the best trades are the ones you don't make. So, in this case, it's worked out, I think, better than a lot of us could have imentioned.
And imagine he was doing this in San Antonio after they trade him. You'd be like,
yeah, I mean, who knows, right? We want to throw a couple things out at you before we get moving. We need to tell you that we are now in the Kevin Jelly region. We're playing the 1-8 matchup out there, which is you got Tangwade, a number 1 seed versus I just spit out my vodka. That's what you can vote on right now in the Garden Report Isms bracket for the year. Thanasis, we ran the other night, Thanasis Manning versus Is That a Tie? And Josue's fax machine with He's Your Third Center. And who's winning that 4-5? I'm not really sure. Anyway, Thanasis way up. Oh, and Third Center is up in that 4-5 matchup versus Josue. You got Tangwade out to a pretty early lead. Again, you can vote on it for about the next 15, 20 minutes. Then we're going to switch it over. The 4-8 matchup, which is look at this boomer right here versus Coach GPT, and vote on that. But social media voting, Twitter, and I think we're going to put the polls up on Instagram as well. We'll be live, and they'll be up all week long, and will not be resolved. And we will tally all the votes total right now. But what we're looking at is the Sweet 16, Thanasis Manning, 70.8% right now. And He's Your Third Center. Ooh, big. Wow. He's Your Third Center just drilling Josue. Holy jeez. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, we rebranded a couple of those. I think Brockton Wi-Fi would have fared better than you had to see that episode. But
you did.
Yeah, I think third center is powerful right now.
It's powerful. He's and you weren't even on the air for that one. You had to see that episode too. Those were both newcomers.
No, but I've been saying that all year. And
I know, but it was Jimmy. It was Jimmy's imitation of you saying it.
And listen, I'm not going to be too hard on Xavier Tillman
he's tonight your third
because
center.
He's your fourth center. So what do you expect?
I would be hard on Xavier Tillman. I thought he looked like a 70-year-old man tonight. Just wasn't. And I thought he moved great. I thought he looked good defensively.
It's a killer right now, John. He looks so good defensively. You think he can be a specialist on some of the better bigs you're seeing out there. But you're not going to sit one of your best 2 centers to get him out there, and he can't play the 4. So he's really stuck right now.
He's in a weird place. I don't know. I think you're picking and choosing a couple minutes here and there, but not that much. I'm not going to say it's a bust, but I don't think they're going to get much out of this the way I'm looking at how he fits with these lineups. I'd like to think they can utilize in certain matchups some of the things that he does, but he's not going to be a regular person that they go to.
No, I don't think Joe's a big fan so far. And listen, he gives him the spot start tonight. I think he wants to see what he has in him and do that as much as possible before the playoffs. But if you don't develop a level of trust in effectively spacing the floor from the corner. That's what he has to do, and he's just not hitting them. And that could come around. You have
I don't
10,
think so. I mean,
10
it's
or
not
so
in his
games here.
DNA, you know?
Yeah,
But
and it's tough because you
the
can really
offense really
ignore that
struggles with
guy.
him out there. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a play earlier where, he was in the right wing and Pritchard, got two guys going downhill, and you have to think like that's an easy play to just kick back to Al or whoever would be there for an open three, but he didn't even look back to Tillman. So it's tough right now. Spacing's
It's
everything in this offense. Joe's all
his
about the
his
offense.
presence, his presence is just so antithetical to like their entire philosophy and the way that they play offense right now. It just doesn't fit. It's just like this turd that you're just kind of sticking in there. Like, I don't know how it makes it work. Again, there might be some places you can stick him in just for defense against guys where you need a body or foul trouble or who knows, God forbid, injury.
Insurance, yeah, if there's an injury, yeah.
Insurance. But I don't see this being regular. Again, I don't see it. I don't think the Cornet minutes are there either. I think they're going to pick and choose spots, and they'll play matchups with those guys in the playoffs where they need to. And I think they go sevens.
I think
they go
Luke's
eight. They go 8 strong with Hauser and whatever. But that's about it.
I think Luke's in the fold if you want to play Al and Kristaps together, which has been a positive lineup this year. I think it's at about plus 13, those two playing together. They like having those guys out there together. It's basically your second starting lineup when one guy's out, Al just shuffling in next to Kristaps. So, let's say Holiday has a bum arm like he does now, or, there's a White, improbable like game where he's out, or even one of the bigs is out. Then all of a sudden, Luke's that backup, I think, playing at that 5 with a small ball lineup. And even tonight, I thought their best stretches tonight were going small around one center, maybe Cornet, with those Fee and Hauser looks. And they were able to just space it out, hit threes, run. And then the double big lineups, it just gets clogged up a little bit. And I do think he can play with Al, which is interesting. Al can space the floor, and he can probably play up the middle a little more, steal some smaller guys, offensive rebound. But right now, unless something like miraculously changes before the playoffs, it feels like you tried it this year. He's still here as insurance. But next year with a full camp and, I know he's a free agent, but if you bring him back in, you can start to institute him into what you do a little bit more. And, Cornet's a free agent this summer too. Who knows what's going to happen there? So you have two options into the future as a depth guy that you could stick with there. But for now, you love what you have in Kristaps. You love what you have in Al. Luke just continues to play good. So I don't know how Tillman fits in 4 spot.
Sorry, I muted myself. I don't see it either. And, again, I wasn't gonna run from it tonight. I want to see it work, not because of an agenda, because you were hoping
he's so
they would
good
get
on
something.
Defense.
He's good on defense, and you wanted to get something at the deadline that would be a small piece. You didn't need a big piece. You wanted something that you might have been lacking somewhere. And I do think some physicality and some toughness and a little bit more defending was what you needed on a team that has the number 1 offensive rating in the history of basketball. Really, it's, you had to kind of put aside all of the, every trade deadline passed when it was just like, get shooting. Just wasn't the issue here. And you knew you were just going to nibble around the edges. So I was hoping it would work out. There's still time and you don't really know. But, at this point, yeah, they're trying, but they're having a difficult time fitting him in. We'll keep going. We want to talk about a potentially concerning development regarding Jrue Holiday. I also want to urge everyone again to get out and vote. Because this is your best chance here to make your voice heard on the Garden Report bracket. Also want to tell you, if you're knee deep in March Madness here and you haven't signed up for PrizePicks yet, I don't really know what you're doing, but I would say head right out there and download the app and take part and take advantage of the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projection, and that's it. That's all you got to do. Some of you might be used to doing this when it comes to football, but it's super exciting with basketball as well, and this is a perfect time to do it. NBA playoffs about to begin, and obviously you've got the March Madness tournament. So turn to PrizePicks, as we said, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's really easy to download. It's very intuitive, and it's easy to make your selections. As we said, you just pick the players, pick a stat projection, more or less, and that's all you need to do. If you go download that app and you use the code CLNS, you get a first deposit match up to 100. Once again, download the app and get a first deposit match up to 100. Head on over to PrizePicks today. Also, again, we want to tell you the tournament is going on right now, and we'll put it up here. We are looking at the Kevin Jelly region in a 1-8 matchup. That's what's live voting here on both our YouTube channels, where this show is streaming live, and on Twitter right now. Vote early, vote often. I don't care. You can vote from a million burners. If you've got your favorite, go on out there and let your voice be heard. You got Tangwade versus I just spit out my vodka. We've got that one up for about another 10 minutes here, pinned to the chat. You got 10 more minutes to vote for that. And then after that, we're look at this Boomer right here versus Coach GPT. Look at this Boomer right here out to a big social media lead. We'll see how it goes here in the YouTube poll. So again, check those things out and hang out and have fun with your Garden Report bracket. Let's get into the holiday a little bit. I don't love it. For those who don't know, he's experiencing a dead arm.
What does that mean?
I think it's like tingly, nervy sort of stuff. A sting, really probably some sort of stinger, which is nerves. And that happens. It's a very common football injury. Anyone who's played has probably gotten a stinger, and it's friggin' brutal. It almost looked like it the way he hit somebody, which is you just kind of jam into somebody with your shoulder, or sometimes it's kind of this way, and bang, you just get this like, oh man, like the whole thing goes, numb, and it hurts, and it's just bad. And I think that's what he got. I think he got some form of stinger there. That can be recurring. You can get it again, or it can kind of linger for a little bit. I don't think it's anything that bad, but you certainly don't like hearing the no timetable, which is what's attached to it right now. They don't seem concerned. They said he's getting better. He's just talking about wanting to get back to stay in rhythm. But third straight game missed with this, and you really don't want it to linger too long.
Yeah, and part of me wondered.
AC joint, people said also, but first it's been listed as an AC joint.
I was just gonna say,
which is a shoulder sprain. But when they called it a dead arm, it made me think it was some kind of stinger. So
not only that, but when you're resting these guys, it's like, oh, sore back, sore toe. Like you just throw whatever's sore in there, and that's that. And it might not be a serious concern, but you have it lined up in the injury report in case you just want to set a guy down. Or in this case, obviously it seems like there's a real ailment that's impacting him there, much like with Porzingis a week ago or two. You just set him down for as long as possible until it's 1,000% healed, and they have the luxury of doing that now. And
the burst arm.
That's basically like Jaylen's first hand last playoffs. That was another thing impacting this team a year ago going into the playoffs. But
anyone who said it didn't. But anyone who said it didn't impact him, it absolutely impacted him. But the Brogdon issue was the bigger issue, and that was also some weird dead arm thing, which was a nerve issue in his elbow, and he couldn't friggin' do anything. He died. He just died.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's related.
He was useless. No, it's not related. This is a totally different injury, but we saw Brogdon go out with what you thought was something minor, and it literally killed his whole season. That was it. And honestly, possibly kept them from going to the finals. Healthy Brogdon in that series probably helps a lot.
Yeah, and he is still dealing with that this year. I think he's out right now.
He was unplayable.
With elbow injury. Yeah. So
because he didn't have surgery because he hates everyone. I can't believe they were able to trade him. I can't believe they were able to trade him after
they were looking to dump surgery. Him. They were looking to just dump him, and then they ended up getting Jrue Holiday for him. Yeah. So
it sucked.
That's an amazing thing they got out of this year, along with Rob's continued health issues. So it's beyond the addition of Holiday, which has been a dream. you got out of two situations that weren't going to go well this year, clearly. But back to Holiday. Your defense just reaches another level with him out there. And that's what I can't wait to see in the playoffs when he's out there, is him just be that menace on that end. And there's been a couple situations in recent weeks where he's done that when he's been out there. And honestly, he just continues to shoot well from three, which is a big difference. In that, Milwaukee game, you hope that he's going to be a guy that just pulverizes their drop if they're trying to ignore him with a Giannis or a Brook. That's what's going to happen. You saw against Denver, they tried to ignore him with Jokic. He hit those big shots late in that game. He's 53% from three over his last 15 games. And that includes 1 of 2 in that last game, 3 of 5 in the Phoenix game right before that. So it's not like with Brogdon, you saw him fall off a cliff as a shooter to where he couldn't shoot at all because of the element. So we'll see what he looks like when he comes back. I don't really remember where he got hurt, but I'm not super concerned about this one. I think this is just something that they can be ultra cautious with, and he would be resting anyway in a lot of these games. So as long as he needs to miss here, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because that's the problem, is we don't know anything. And this is, where you get into push and pull with fans. I don't think it's alarmism to be alarmed, because really, again, you just don't want something weird to happen and mess with this. And they've had tremendous injury luck this year. So yes, you look at the last couple of seasons with Rob and what happened with him late when they were an absolute wagon there, and then the teeny small stuff. And again, no excuse. The Heat were way more banged up than the Celtics were in that series, but you don't have the Brogdon injury, or Tatum doesn't roll his ankle in Game 7, and you might be having different conversations about how that season ended. So yes, you just don't want anything to happen. But this is what always happens with fans: is some people want to freak out, and some people want to say he's fine, because he was sitting in the game and he looked fine. I'm leaning towards fine and no concern at all. But again, I wish the report wasn't dead arm. I wish it was a fake injury that they were just using to give him some rest. So it's an actual thing. Hopefully it goes away. But I'm definitely not on the freak out. I'm on the other end of the panic meter.
Can the Celtics? We haven't even talked about this year because of how healthy they've been, as you mentioned there. Can they sustain an injury? Like if a guy had to miss, let's say, one series,
possibly for 2 rounds.
That's amazing to think about.
And so games like that's what I'm saying is games like this where how many games have they won by 20 something points where they were down two of their 6 players? It's they're doing it all the time.
Yeah, so they have experience doing it. These young guys continue to get reps. And, back to that Pritchard conversation, I don't think you were on last show, John, when I got asked this, but I think Jimmy asked me, who is that 7th guy right now in that rotation when you're fully healthy? And, I said Hauser because that's just kind of felt like the default all year. But I think Pritchard has turned the corner and taken that spot.
It's both, though. It's both in the sense that you need both. Like, there's one center. If you're not playing double big, you need one person to replace Porzingis, and that's Horford. Then you need one person to spell the guards and one person to spell the wings. So I think Horford plays the most, but I think Hauser and Pritchard are of equal value.
So you could see them both playing real minutes.
I'm not going to call it perfect, but I mean it makes sense that it is what it is because of that reason. That there's basically one wing replacement, one guard replacement, one big replacement, and that's the whole bench, and that's what it's going to continue to be. And you will double up with Horford with some double big minutes, but ultimately that's all you need. It's going to be Brown and 2 guards with double bigs, or Jaylen with 2 guards and double bigs, or Jaylen with Hauser, or Tatum with Hauser, Pritchard lineups with so that's all you're going to do there.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this.
I think they're the same. I think they're equally valuable because that is your rotation. You're going to need that to kind of keep moving things around. Luckily, having big guards, you can kind of play those Tatum with two of those guys, and and the double big, and still you have options, but I'm comfortable with all of those guys at this point. I think we were having the conversation a couple weeks ago.
So you've turned the corner?
I've turned the corner in the sense that it's essential, but again, I think that what we said at the beginning of the year about the top 6 being so good, I just think no matter what, like, you're going to be okay. The rotations might be tighter. So instead of 6-minute rest on the bench, it's going to be a 4-minute rest on the bench for a guy like Tatum. But I still think I still think you're fine in those minutes. I don't think there's terror involved bringing those guys off the bench. I really don't.
Yeah, and I just saw
because other teams have to do it too. And again, in a 7-game series, that matters, So, you saw how dead Tatum and Brown were. I mean, Tatum, later in the playoffs,
they refused to use the bench last year,
and they just wouldn't do it at all, and they were terrified.
Grant was buried. Hauser was buried.
I don't think
Fournette.
You should be terrified this year to use it because everyone else is so good. I don't think you'll have those panicky moments where you're like, the game's going to get away from us right here in this stretch in the third quarter. Like, I don't think you fear that anymore. I think where you're going to be careful is in tight games going into your regular fourth quarter rotation, with Tatum maybe sitting and a couple of bench guys out there. You don't want to get cute certain times. But I think I think through 3 quarters you can use these guys liberally, and then you gotta assess and see where you're at.
Especially if you go up by 15, 20 through some of those starting rotations,
as
they've done against certain teams here. And it's it's going to be interesting. You're still facing that lurking chance that it's a Miami round 1 or it's a Philly, like one of those weird letdown seasons leads to them being at the 8 in round 1 with potentially Embiid coming back or the Heat hitting their stride or finding something in that round 1 against you. But more likely than not, like going into Chicago tomorrow, they're locked into 9, and they're probably going to beat the Hawks. You never know with 1-game playoffs like those, but the Hawks are just so battered, feel like they're giving up at this point. They're pretty much locked into 10. So we'll have that debate, John. Do you want a real opponent round 1, something to get you going like the Nets, or do you want what 1 seeds usually get, which is a Bulls sweep? And that seems like it's in the cards now that Chicago's locked into 9, and maybe they could beat a Miami or Philly or whoever drops down into that 8-seed game. But you have the chance of both here, and I think you'll loop the Pacers into that to some degree, John, too, right? Like they have played worse late in the year. They have some injuries. They traded Buddy Hield, so they're not quite that team that really challenged you early in the year. But they make you a little uncomfortable. They could give you some games. It'd be a little bit harder than a typical 1-8 series. But you got Philly in that mix. You got Miami in that mix. So it's going to be interesting to watch how that shapes up at the bottom of the league over these last 10, 12 games.
It's honestly hard to pretend that I think any team is going to pose a real challenge at this point. If anything, I think it'll be annoying. Like you might have an annoying 6-game series or one, God forbid, that goes 7 and stresses everybody out. I just can't see it happening. I think Philly is the worst case scenario. Oh yeah, and again, I say that was the most lopsided 7-game series in playoff history, just in terms of the point differential and the wins. And you never thought you were going to lose it. You were just pissed off that you couldn't wrap it up earlier. I was going to say how pissed,
because if a first-round series went 7 games for this team, it would be all-out fury in our chat.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Even if it is 4 home blowout wins.
Because again, just. To be clear, for the people in the chat who, experienced that fully, that Boston team was clearly the best team in the NBA, like clearly the best team. Even the Lakers, I was like, I didn't think the Lakers were a challenge for them. The Boston was clearly the best team. So it was annoying as shit, but you never at any point in time felt like they might lose it. Which was strange because that was the first year that team was together, so you didn't know what they were made of in the playoffs. I don't think there was a single fan who was like, they could drop Game 7 to Atlanta here. Nobody thought it. And they came out and they drilled them. So that really wasn't an issue. It was more this team, though, because of the PTSD and because what you've seen, with not so great, playoff performances, most recently with Jaylen against Miami and then Tatum in the finals, and their 2 exits the last 2 years have come on the heels of stars not playing well. So you've seen these guys let you down, and you're worried that they could do it again. So there's some evidence, but I just don't think there's any. It shouldn't be rooted in anything real or rational, because this team is a good bit better than everyone they're going to be facing in the early in the playoffs here. Like a good bit better.
Yeah, even more so than 08.
So yeah, anything here is just ghosts, right?
Which might not exist anymore. We've talked about how it's a different.
You don't
team.
know.
It's a different dynamic. There's clearly a similar dynamic at the top, despite the strides Brown and Tatum have made this year. But you're still worried about them lapsing back into some bad habits. And, I don't know. I don't hate to get away from this game too quickly, but how did you feel about the end of that Bucks game? Because I was listening back. I know you weren't on the air with me here. I was surprised you weren't just a tiny bit more concerned, especially as a Bucks guy. I mean, you've been the guy who's held out hope on that team.
It's not the Bucks guy. I think they pose unique challenges simply because oftentimes it's just the best players that do something here, to you, and they have two guys capable of winning multiple games on their own. And so, Giannis is having MVP caliber season, and Lillard is Lillard, and can do anything. If you were worried about, Embiid and Harden, almost again, it's a different team, but yeah, there's scariness there, and they're playing better, even though their record doesn't necessarily reflect it all the time. There's more buy-in on defense, and I think they are. I don't think they're worried. Like, I'm not worried about the Bucks. Everyone should be worried about the Celtics.
That's where I was going.
All I mean is that's what I said at the beginning of the year. Don't worry about what other teams do. Worry about what they can't do to stop you. And I think that's the Celtics' superpower is there's really nothing teams can do against them. Really nothing. You try weird gimmicky things like letting Jaylen Brown shoot open threes. Like that's what teams are doing. Like, yeah, teams are going to have to try gimmicks and tactics against them. Zone defense. Bucks are the only team out there that has man beaters, right? That's it. So that's the only thing that you're not worried about. I just thought people were dismissing them. And I said, Milwaukee's not a walkover. That's all I'm saying in that regard. I'm not by any means saying that, oh, geez, watch out. Bucks are going to beat them. I would,
it's just that,
I would go heavy Celtics. So
you said it perfectly, because that was all on the Celtics there down the stretch of that game, giving up 2 offensive rebounds, getting a technical foul after getting blocked and giving away a breakout dunk, giving up the threes the way they did to Lillard and Portis and others. And they pretty much squandered a 15-point lead in, the final 9-10 minutes there. And I said in our chat, John, I was surprised they didn't actually go and blow that game. So that's a credit to them. Tatum was able to get downhill.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. I just think they got bored. That wasn't.
You think it was a boredom game?
Yes, that to me was not the Bucks. I
disagree, actually. I think they zoned up. I think they slowed the Celtics down. The Celtics fell asleep, so maybe that is boredom. But whether it's boredom or execution, they've done that before.
I know, but in this particular game, yes, the zone, and they were settling for shots and they weren't falling, but I don't think the zone broke them. I just think they got a little bored, started settling, and were up 20 points. They knew that this was a non-Giannis game. They'd kind of done their work. They put him to bed, and then they just cruised a little. Not at all. And like I said, zone is the classic gimmick that these teams are gonna have to try to throw the Celtics off, because zone is what losers do, when they know that they can't beat you straight up. So yeah, but I think the Celtics have done far better against zone this year than in years past. I don't think it's the type of thing that snaps their brains like it did literally every single time somebody threw it at them last year. So I don't think this was a case of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think it was they ramped it down to 70%, and they
that
let
might be true.
in.
That might be true, but I think the same scenario could play out in that matchup in a playoff setting where you're up big, Lillard starts stepping into those threes, and then, oh, shoot, your 20-point lead's down to 4 in a matter of minutes there. And, Joe even said that after that game. You can't expect up 18 to win that game. You can't expect that it's not going to get close late after that. And I'll give them credit. They were 11-9, John, in 3-point games under 3 minutes. I think going into that game, you get 2 good looks down the stretch that shut it down. Lillard took that bad shot, and Portis missed a big free throw there. And I think Portis actually got another good look from 3 there that he could have hit. So I think you dodged a real bullet there of potentially collapsing against a team that's starting to gain a little bit of momentum there. Didn't have Giannis. I think came out of that game feeling really good about the way they played the Celtics, despite the Celtics being down Hauser and Holiday as well. They were able to go toe for toe, I thought, in the fourth quarter against a team that was pretty much fully loaded. So I've gone back and forth on the Bucks all year, John. That game gave me a little bit more respect for them, at least the way they can make it tough by hanging with the Celtics offensively.
Again, everything I was saying about the Bucks was just in response to you guys being like thinking that they were toast.
The defense is so bad, though. It really is.
It's bad, but I think it's a little bit better under Doc than it was before. But again, the results haven't been terrific. Still,
I think they're 12-11 now under him.
Yeah. We want to fill you in one last time here, just to let everybody know what's going on. Put it on the stage here briefly. We are live with the second game in our playoff bracket right now, which is look at this boomer right here versus Coach GPT, a 4-5 matchup. It's a pretty damn good matchup right there. Voting is live. It's going to carry us through the rest of the show, so check it out. And vote on Twitter. The polls will be live on our social media, so you can follow there and vote as many times as you want for your favorite term, I guess we're calling it here on Garden Report Isms. So head on out there and do your worst, okay? Do what you can. We also want to tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, well, hold it.
Let me get this one out here too. We also want to tell you, if you want to have awesome hair like Bobby Manning or Jimmy Toscano or even a John Zannis, we're not gonna say anything about Sherrod, but that's fine. Try Nutrafol. I use Nutrafol, so should you. Hair loss or hair health isn't really something you need to wait until it all falls out to figure it out. You can be addressing this at any point in time here in your lives, and that's what you do with Nutrafol, which is entirely natural. And it works for you. Everyone's hair journey, as I said, is different. So whether you are losing a little bit or just want to prevent it or just have it stay healthy, that's why you should use Nutrafol. And right now we're offering a special deal here at the Garden Report. $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men. That's right, Nutrafol.com/men. Use the code GARDEN. $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping. If you are concerned or interested in maintaining healthy hair, Nutrafol is the thing for you. Bobby, what were you going to talk about?
I want to squeeze in 2 things real quick. Back to what I was talking about earlier. Basketball Reference now has Philly, Miami, and Chicago all at 21% odds to play the Celtics round 1 as the 8 seed. So I think you are kind of getting into the space where you're like, it's probably going to be one of them. Maybe the Pacers, but it's probably going to be Heat, Sixers, or Bulls, depending on how this Embiid thing goes down the stretch. And we do
Celtics CLNS. It's on Celtics CLNS. Where do I vote on Twitter? Go ahead, Bobby. Yep.
And we do have a quote from Jaylen, who we haven't talked about tonight, but 33 for him. He's had 20 plus in every game since the break. I think throughout the years, my opportunity has varied. This is from Adam Himmelsbach. Not because of my lack of skill set, but because a lot of big-time players have come through this organization. So I just kept patient, kept getting better, and now it's my time.
It's his time. Well, again, the best things about Jaylen Brown this year is pretty much that. It's not the patience in waiting for opportunities. It's the patience in not just charging forward when he got the ball in his hands, and having the patience to recognize, hey, it's not there. I'm going to kick it back out, or I'm going to, make a play. he's dribbling less, and that's resulting in fewer turnovers. He's making better reads, but I just think he's still a difficult shot maker all over the place, right, Bobby? So there's a lot of shots if someone else took him that Jaylen Brown takes, you'd be like, ugh, I don't like that. But for him, that's his bag, right? Those middies, and right now going to the left has really worked for him, and he goes and finishes strong through contact. Certainly better than Tatum when he's going to the rim there. A lot of those shots, if they're taken by Tatum, are the ones where he's falling underneath the basket. It doesn't go in, and the other team breaks out 5-on-4. So these are difficult things that he's doing, but he's still able to do them at a high efficiency. And it's pretty friggin' insane what he did tonight. I mean, he started the game 11 of 13, I think. Finished 33 points, 13 of 19. He was just silly. The free throw thing is still going to freak people out, and that's going to cause some hair loss in the playoffs. I'll tell you that. I don't know how that gets fixed, but everything else is just unreal right now. The way he's been playing, and he gets to just, when these non-Tatum games, he gets to just kind of do whatever he wants to do. But I mean, 19 shots is well within like normal range, right? This isn't an insane amount of offense from him. You could easily think on a night where Tatum would sit that Brown would have to chuck 24, 25, 26 shots being the primary offensive weapon, and he didn't.
Yeah, the efficiency stat, we've talked about that for 4 years now. I remember back when we started the show, it was like, let him shoot as many times as he wants because he's going to be incredibly efficient doing it. But scaling that back in a game like this, letting Pritchard get more ball time, 0 assists you don't love, but didn't feel like he wasn't making decent plays or at least decisions throughout this one. I thought he was just super aggressive, which he usually is. And despite 4 turnovers tonight, I feel like those have scaled down generally this year, at least the really bad ones. So in his role, I think he's in an amazing place. And I think that's been the key for a lot of this year is that Tatum's going to be the point of attack a lot of the times, the guy who's making decisions against the defense as they throw it at them first. And Jaylen's going to be the guy who plays ahead, gets the ball in the pocket, cuts, shoots, plays off Tatum or whoever else is in control of the offense there. Spaces sometimes. He did that tonight too at times. So I like the versatility of his role here. At the same time, you still do get a little stuck sometimes on the Tatum Brown thing in terms of, are they connecting enough while they're out there? Is it my turn, your turn while they're out there? Can one guy have it going and the other guy still stay involved to some degree? Because they've balanced that to some degree all year, playing different quarters, Brown often early, Tatum often late, making sure that spacing's right for the other guy if one guy's not, if one guy's rolling, and even the rotations, as we've talked about, John, tinkering with those to get one guy out of there if he's a little slow early, keep the guy who's hot in there. So they've balanced that well this year, but they have to continue to maintain that. And I know Brown always aspires to do more, always aspires to do better, and I think sometimes we've said, John, his forcefulness and just his urgency out there sets a better tone than Tatum's a lot of the time. So you almost wish that he could be the point of attack that's like the, face of the team, or at least setting the tone for the team. You wish he could do that more often for them. But he's best in the second role, I feel like, behind Tatum, playing off him, playing off others, playing ahead of the defense. That's where he's really thrived this year. He's playing a more narrow, focused role, almost focusing entirely on scoring, John. And, I know he's made plays here or there where he's had to, but I think narrowly focusing on scoring and being aggressive with the ball in his hands and getting shots off quickly has been the key for him to limiting turnovers, to limiting just getting stuck out there at times. And for him to be able to do it without Tatum's amazing. But I don't think we've asked the very last Brown question of the year. We had some questions about him early, right?
Okay.
But he
That's
needs
the last one.
Can he consistently fit into that role in the playoffs? Like, can he just focus on scoring, playing off other guys, and let the ball handlers, White, Tatum, even an Allen, a Porzingis sometimes really focus on the playmaking on the team.
Look,
Because there's still some situations, John, where he'll freelance a little bit, where he'll
I mean,
drive into traffic, get a little stuck here or there. You want to limit those come playoff time.
So, yes, I think again everything comes down to like the stakes have been so low the entire regular season. What happens when they, kick up a notch? And does it change anything? I don't know. I mean, I guess any fears in, Brown and Tatum doing any of that stuff, with Brown maybe, putting his head down or trying to force it when things get tough or, or this or that. I think a lot of that is rooted in, some sort of PTSD from having seen times where that's happened before. I just think, why should it affect the Celtics and not other teams? Like, don't you think this Celtics team is also going to find another level? Like, I don't see them going in playing at the same level everyone else's intensity goes up. I think they're just functioning on this super high level. I guess, yeah, maybe in a game, the threes aren't falling and one of these guys decides that they want to try to force the issue a little bit and they get out of their game. Maybe that happens. But again, over the course of an entire series, I think the one thing that's worked for the Celtics this year is they just kind of kept doing exactly what they were trying to do, right? Like they never wavered. They didn't say like, oh, crap, forget the threes, they're not falling. They just keep shooting them. And if they live through a night where they're not making them, sometimes they would win, where in the past they would not if the threes weren't falling. And sometimes they'll just take the L and then they'll come back and they'll play the same way the next time. And then they'd rip off 7 straight wins. So again, I'm not nearly as concerned about these kind of one-off moments in the playoffs of people doing these things because I just think like they've been self-correcting all year long, and I think that they'll do that again. So less than normal. Less than normal. The only thing you're worried about is Tatum and Brown forget what's been working all season long and slow it down, go into ISO and try to do it all themselves. I just don't think that's going to happen. So that's
it's part of Brown's game at times, and it's part of Tatum's.
It's part of both of their games.
Yeah,
it's part of both of their games, and it's valuable because again, the most valuable skill in basketball is people who can create their own shot, and score when everybody knows that they're trying to score. And both of these guys can do it. So sometimes you need that. You need him on that wall. You need those guys to do that when nothing is going right. How many times were we like, oh my God, thank God Brogdon is here because he could create his own offense. So yeah, you need that. But again, there's so much else going on here, and I think they get it. I just don't think that ball's sticking in anybody's hands. I'm way more concerned with Tatum than I am with Brown in that regard. With Tatum, I think there's a higher playmaking ceiling than with Brown. I just don't think Brown is going into like takeover mode where he's going to hijack the offense altogether. Whereas, I'm not saying Tatum would either, but I think the tendency of Tatum to like try to cook and, wait it all out and go into that ISO game and they start deferring to point Tatum. I'm more worried about that than I am with anything that Brown's going to do. Yeah,
both of them need to rely on their teammates though and take advantage of this extra skill set they have around them. And
and I'm not scared of this. I'm saying if you're talking about a thing that might surface, I don't want to see slow down point Tatum in the finals. I'm, or in any playoff. I want them to do what they're doing here.
Yeah, or Brown driving into a crowd and getting stuck and not knowing what to do with it.
I'm just not as worried about that.
Yeah. They've reduced all of that this year.
Yeah,
but a big reason for that is that they've trusted White with the ball more. They're getting it to Porzingis and involving him consistently. Like these are just things they're going to have to continue to do in the playoffs as things get a little more tense, as they face better opponents, as they play opponents who are going to be able to game plan for them a little bit more rather than just, going through Detroit's and Washington's and, seeing a Milwaukee here or there that might be missing a guy. So it's going to ramp up fast for them. And, that's another thing you have to consider here. We kicked off the show, John, saying that it's great that you can rotate these guys in and out right now and get them the rest while getting them the reps. But it's going to ramp up pretty fast from this awful schedule down the stretch to, potentially a Miami or Philly or something like that round one in the playoffs. So you got to still be able to practice these habits here. And listen, it's these habits that are generating these kind of 20, 25-point wins right now. So there's no concern right now, at least from what we're seeing.
Yep.
They're continuing to do it. But it's just, forecasting stuff that could potentially come up down the line, along with what we've talked about with the bench.
Look, if and when it happens, I think we'll all just be yelling at our screens, and then we're going to come on here and we're going to yell about it, because I do think the patience and the leash will be very short if you start to see a regression or any old tactics or any old things that hadn't worked before when everything had worked so well here. I just, like I said, is my general vibe with with this team is that's just less likely to happen here. And again, I still think they're so much better than most other teams. I just don't think it's going to come into play, really. We've been talking about Brown a bit and how good he's been and how good he was tonight. Here's Joe Mazzulla again talking about the evolution of Jaylen's game.
How Jaylen, he thinks, is just kind of just more dangerous as
Nope.
a shooter and scorer.
Let's go back to Joe.
More from him. What have you seen from him on that end, and then just what you see from him tonight in general?
I've just seen great stuff. I love just the way he's carrying himself out there on the court. He's processing each and every possession on both ends of the floor. He's taking the shots that he wants. He's making plays for himself, for his teammates. It's been an honor to coach him. He's been just playing well-rounded basketball on both ends. So it's been fun to watch.
Joe, very subdued. Do you think he's sad since people told him he can't block shots anymore?
I did hear that there was an opportunity in that Bucks game. I think it was Beverly where he could have, but
right in front of him, right in his eye. Yeah. And then after he shot it, he looked at Joe and he goes, nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, too bad. I mean, he made it too obvious on that Phoenix one.
It was silly. It was silly. Yeah, it was silly. Closing thoughts here, Bobby. And again, last time we're going to tell you, because we're going to wrap this thing up. Last opportunity to vote in the show, not overall. The 4-5 matchup in the Kevin Jelly region. Look at this boomer right here versus Coach GPT. It's live on both our YouTube channels here, pinned to the comments, pinned to the chat. And you can go on our social media handles. That's Celtics CLNS if you want to check that out and vote one last time here before you can. The voting will stay live through the end of the weekend, though, so no worries there. You still have opportunities to vote. Closing thoughts here, Bobby?
So Celtics are up to what, 58 wins now? Or 56, rather?
I hope it's 56 because that's what the banner says.
No, it's 56. So 12 games left. That means I see at most 2 losses the rest of the way. So we're talking.
That's the thing, is half these other teams they're playing have mailed it in too. Celtics can rest half their starters and still win by 20 points, as was evidenced by tonight.
So I see 2 losses at most the rest of the way things are going. So
yeah, I mean, where do you even see them? You're looking at Chicago, the 2 with Atlanta, and you've got tough matchups.
The Thunder
against
one's tough.
New Orleans at New Orleans at versus Oklahoma City. A throwaway against the Bucks, where my guess is no one is going to play. So who knows? You might get games that are entire bench games, and sure, they could lose a couple of those there too. Like, would it be stunning if you had a game where nobody played?
Yeah, no. So I think you account for those Thunder and Pelican games, which are difficult on paper. And if you win those, maybe there's nothing games against the Knicks and Bucks there at the end of the season. They could win every game the rest of the way, but they've dropped one here or there. So I think you have to think, John, there'll be at least one loss the rest of the way. And if it is only one, you are going to pass the 86 Celtics for the best season, or second best season in Celtics history. If you win the final 12, you're going to tie 73 for the best season in Celtics history. So I at least have the Celtics tying the 08 team with 66 at the very least. And you could tie 86 if you finish 11-1. If you finish 12-0, this is going to finish tied for the best team in Celtics history, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's been an amazing year. And there's good teams out there. I mean, I know people talk about the East not being, as strong this year. But I mean, you have to look back at the earlier generations when many of these other, records were set. I don't think there was world beaters all up and down, the conferences here. I mean, when the Celtics went 67-15, again, far fewer teams. There's probably 24 teams playing back then. And you're looking at, this is the 86 team. They were 13 games up on the Sixers.
People call that the greatest team ever.
It was an amazing. It was art. It was just artistic. It was just beautiful.
To tie them or even pass them would really be something.
It is, but again, I have to point out, like, it's actually harder to do it now. I'm not gonna lie, because there was just like 4 good teams back. No, there was like 4 good teams then, total. Like, Celtics finished 13 games up on the Sixers, who were a decent team for sure. Then the next team was the Washington Bullets in the Atlantic Division that finished 39-43. And then the Nets and the Knicks were like bottom feeders. The Bucks were solid. The Hawks were solid. The Rockets out west. And then the Lakers. And that's it. The Lakers won the Pacific Division that year by 22 games, 62-20. Second place were the Portland Trailblazers at 40-42. Third place was a team with a 39% winning percentage. So again, there was literally 4 good teams total. I mean, and when people hate hearing this too. When the Celtics were winning championships, one after the other in the 60s, there were like 2 good teams. I mean, maybe one and a half good teams. So yes, there's a lot of parity, and you have the salary cap. It's extremely hard to have a record this good,
and to have this team.
I'm sorry, guys. There's way more good teams than there was, back then. And yeah, 87 was good too, and you had issues. Kind of the same thing with the 2009 Celtics. That team was actually better than 2008. That team was better than 2008.
Go down the line.
And KG got hurt.
Go down the line.
Get your last votes in, people. Yeah.
It's improbable what they've done to build this roster. We hit on the improbability of Holiday earlier. The Porzingis thing was a stroke of art in its own right, especially them identifying him as a guy that could bring this all together. You give Danny credit for drafting Tatum, Brown, and Pritchard. And then, you had to do a little searching as Brad, too, to find a guy. I know Danny actually traded for Cornette, but Brad brought him back, further developed him, brought in Hauser undrafted, developed him, and now they're working on some guys lower on the roster now to keep this thing going into the future. For all the concerns we've had, John, I don't think any of us would be shocked if they win it all this year. And then once they do that, I know there's going to be some topics here, and actually, we got to get into those holiday extension talks once April begin. But you're going to have a chance here to really rip off multiple championships in coming years if you just get it done this year and get it off your back. That, hump going back to 08 and even the, letdowns that this group has had in a couple of different spots. But once you do it, and especially if you do it this year, you run this team back again next year, and then you try to do it again. You have a really good chance here to actually solidify what you're doing now. Because no one's called this a Warriors team, John, just because I think they haven't proven themselves like that force that's just a million miles above all the other teams. But if they go and do it this year, that's what they're going to become and be considered and have the chance to be, do into the future. So they have really good opportunity here because of the roster they put together and the development that these guys have, achieved internally. And once they do it, John, all these fears, all the nitpicking, all the stuff that we have to do just because of what we've seen in the past, that's all going to go away. Yeah. And you could end up with a season next year that's even better than this one. It's why, again, I think people have finally, it's why you've had a relatively calm me this year. Because I haven't been concerned by. Am I up on the panic meter at the top now? We may have to change this whole thing here. I don't know. Jimmy's been trying to goad me into panic all year. I just haven't felt it because I
I've had a lot of belief in the team throughout the course of the season that they were going to correct it, and they were always, and it happened. They never got into streaks and lulls. Yeah, there was some shit they did that's annoying, but most of any frustration was more at like the older versions of them than what they were actually doing this year. But yeah, some of that shit rears its head in the playoffs. Yeah, it's gonna be annoying, and there will be some things said, but I just think it's not who they are right now. I just think they're different. They're different. And if they end up, so if they prove me wrong in the sense that I actually believe they've figured it out, yeah, we're going to lose our shit a little bit, because it's going to be like, they fooled us again, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Doesn't mean winning is assured. If you lose, I don't think you lose in the same manners where you lost, in the past. Where you just self-destructed and played really crappy and had teams just get in your head and force you to play poorly. You lose to a Denver team because Denver's really good. Okay, it happened. You won't love it. Still might view it as a failure of a season, but you might get it, right?
It'll depend how it goes down. I mean, that visual, and
totally.
It's a million years ago now, and a different coach and a whole different roster. But to go from up 2-1 in that Warriors series to getting run off the floor and embarrassed in Game 6 on the home floor wasn't great. And, just that franticness. You don't want to see them back in that spot when things start to go wrong. What you actually want to see, John, is things go wrong in a series and them rally together and figure it out. And they did that actually last year in that Philly series pretty well. They almost did in the Miami series. So maybe that's some growth too last year that you have to give them credit for, despite how horribly it ended.
Yep.
So we'll see. I'm just holding out of caution. Every day though makes me more.
Someone wanted it.
Every day just makes me more confident in the whole thing that's going on here. I think they've just achieved a lot and figured out a lot this regular season. And giving themselves a lot of options and ways to win. Like if they were just shooting threes again this year, John, and hitting a million threes, and that was the ball game, I think we'd feel a little bit differently. But for them to go to the rim at times, and them to post up, and them to have like this Brown element and some other guys off the bench, you have a little bit more of a diversification in the way you can win, along with a much better defense. I mean, how much did we talk about defense last year? And I don't think we've brought it up once this year. It's just been a given that they're great on that end. So credit to them for that too.
Yeah. It's again, not a lot. Anything that we throw out there, and if he wants to throw it out there, it's still me. I just don't think it's fair.
I think we're flipping sides actually here.
We will. There's not going to be much to dissect or talk about. I don't think there's anything they're going to do between now and the end of the regular season that's going to make you change your thinking in terms of what's going to happen here. So,
I'm ready for let's just count them down quickly, one by one, these final 12, and let's get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That Thunder one could be fun in 2 weeks.
There could be a couple fun games, and again, you lose. Sure, look, you play your full lineup, and you lose to the Pelicans and the Thunder. You're going to start looking at that record against top teams, and you'll talk about that a little bit. So it's nice. It'd be nice to get one of those wins under your belt, because it hasn't.
You got to get the Thunder back. That was a bad loss out there in OKC.
You want to get that, because that's a thing, and it does look like it is lipstick John in that one. I don't get it. I don't get the artwork there. I don't get it.
You must have had a lot of lip balm on that night or something.
Yeah, they're looking ripe. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are indeed. So we're gonna wrap up. We got another one back-to-backs tomorrow. They're playing someone, Chicago.
I will say, for our perspective, John, we need Miami round 1. Because if it's Chicago, get ready for 4 more of these shows in the playoffs.
I've never even. Yeah, it's all right though. When it matters, it changes. Right now, nothing has mattered for so long. Denver's the only thing that mattered, and they mucked it. It sucked. So definitely, and look, Sixers or Heat round 1. Great storylines, and a little, and it's going to make you sweat a little bit. So yes, I think there'll be a lot of importance there. Chicago would suck. So yeah, you know me, Bobby. I'm a stories guy, and you can't run away from stuff. And there's no reason wishing for something that happened differently. So I will enjoy those series if they get either Miami or Philly, even though
Miami would be
those aren't
so perfect.
Even though there are, I think they destroy Miami this year.
Well, that would
Philly,
be
I'd
great
say,
too. That would set
yeah,
a
Philly,
great tone for the playoff run.
Philly worries me a teeny bit more, but we are going to wrap it. Again, take your votes. Pin to the chat right here. You can still vote. Take your votes to Twitter at Celtics CLNS. Give us a follow there. Follow us here. Subscribe and tell your friends this is the place to be. This is the place to be through the course of the playoffs. This guy doesn't think so. But that's okay. Hang out with us after every single game, as we've been doing for the last several years, heading into the playoffs and what promises to be a long and fun and fruitful run. Bobby and I are back tomorrow with some more people. What the fuck is Twitter? All your friends are here. That's good to know, Fuzzy. Oh, go vote on X. Celtics CLNS. You can check that out. Until then, we will see you tomorrow. We're going to unveil a few more games that you can vote on. We're going back to the Herman Gomez region. There's a couple of good ones here. Tomorrow, the voting: Farts My Dog versus That's Jealous, which is a comer, and then Sad Girls versus Blame Pie. Those are some pretty good ones out there, so go check those out. In the meantime, Bobby and I are going to say bye, and we will see you guys tomorrow night. Good night, all.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game. Forfeit's out. I think it's an option.
That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.